All right, how do we do this anyway? Does Leanne start or does Sherry?
Yes.
start?
Yes, Leanne.
All
Or
right.
Vanna White.
I'm the moderator, apparently.
She's the Vanna
kidding.
White of NOAA.
Let me go put on my dress, put on my dress, high heels, and turn those letters.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Hope everyone's doing fabulous on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome back to our Tiny Talks workshops. Today is my favorite day. It's Inspector Day, and I get to see our awesome NOAA inspectors. So today we're going to have some topics that we're going to talk about, and I don't know if time allows. Will we have any questions? We'll have Q&A at the end. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our incredibly fantastic operations manager, Ms. Sherry.
Hi, everyone. Just wanted to take a minute and go over some things that we're finding lots of questions coming in on. And we tried to talk about all those and then have them to discuss with you guys. So the first one we came up with was plumbing for washing machines. And I'm going to let the inspectors take over for that one. Rich?
I'll jump in on that one, Sherry. So, ANSI, the ANSI standard, which is what we go by, is based off of an RV code, recreational vehicle, and with that they have provisions in there. Some of the provisions they have in there are based on smaller appliances, like for example the washer and standpipe. So typically an RV washer is more of a compact assembly than your residential house. And what we're finding is that in tiny houses, I would say more times than not, we're seeing residential type of wash machines installed there. So with that said, the ANSI standard, it calls for an 1.5 inch standpipe. Now, being that they're using a larger capacity washer, being the residential washer, the gallons per minute flow out of a standard residential wash machine is quite higher. So we're changing the standard from an 1.5 inch pipe to a 2-inch standpipe to accommodate. It'll accommodate either. If somebody wants to hook up an RV one, they can still hook that up. It's not going to be a big deal. Or if they want to go with a residential type unit, then they're safe and covered, and they're ahead of the ball game, so to speak, from a regular standard RV type of wash machine. Does anybody else have any input to that I missed or may have not covered?
Tony?
Yeah, go ahead, Tony, and then I'll jump in.
Tony,
He's
you're
muted.
No, I was muted. I was trying to get Frank on.
Oh, okay.
He was trying to get connected in.
Okay. Everyone, this is our newest inspector, Frank, that just joined us.
Hey,
Welcome, Frank. Tony, do you have anything to add to what Rich said, or Chad, do you have anything to add?
They were talking about the wash
Washing
stack.
machine, yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with it. Yeah. I mean,
Chad?
Rich has got a good point, because most of the ones we see are regular residential ones there.
I think it'd be important that's what people are probably always going to try to put if they can, and that's what we have to remember is these people are thinking we're trying to build to a code of an RV with the house. So,
Right.
Right.
Sorry.
Be one step ahead.
Chad, did you have anything to add?
I feel like he hit that perfectly.
Uh-oh.
You're breaking up.
Can you hear me?
Barely. You're breaking up a little bit.
No, I feel like he hit that right on the head. That was perfectly
Okay.
explained.
Okay. Thanks,
So
Beth.
it'll go into the NOAA standards as requiring the 2-inch pipe instead of the 1.5.
Can I jump in on that and share my screen?
Absolutely.
All right, let me see if I can figure out how to share my screen. Doo-doo. Share screen. All right, this is what Rich sent over for the laundry standpipe. And I thought that was a good example. Maybe we can take
It
this
is.
and put it on something somewhere. There's a washer box right there, and there's an 18-inch minimum distance between that and the bottom of the, what is that called? The outflow pipe,
Trap.
the horizontal pipe,
Right, yeah, the trap and the trap
Yeah,
and the- and the
right.
the top of the trap, not the top, I guess it would be the top of the trap, yeah. So there's 18 inches minimum there, and then there's, notice that he has a good distance between the trap and where it goes down into what it looks like is a 3-inch pipe or 2.5-inch pipe or something that's larger than a 2-inch. But anyway, it looks like to me that number 5 is an 1.5-inch pipe. Let me look and see. No, that's 2-inch.
It's actually 2-inch. Yeah, it's very deceiving.
All right. But what I want to point out here is it's not an S trap. We've seen some washer boxes with an S trap on them. And basically what they do is because there's only so much space between the studs, they try to get this thing going down before they have to go through another stud. And so they put this trap here, and then they put an elbow and then elbow right down. And that's what's called an S trap. Right, guys?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And the last
So,
thing you want is an S trap because they have a tendency to self-siphon.
right.
So it'll drain your trap, and then you'll get that smell, that sewage smell back in the house.
and then you'll also see on here the kick plates, anything that is 1.25 for plumbing and 1.5 for electric. Is that what the numbers are? All right,
I
from the
believe-
face of the stud back 1.25 and from the face of the stud back for electrical 1.5. If it's less than that, you have to have a kick plate.
For electric.
Yeah, it's 1.25 for both now. They updated that.
Okay. Okay, all right. All right, I'm behind times, but okay. All right, but I just wanted to point out this drawing, and maybe Sherry, we can take this, I'll forward it to you and you already have it, but I'll send it to you again. If you can figure out how to put that on our member portal, that would be something good. Or would we put this on our ANSI Plus standard or NOAA
Yeah,
Plus?
the ANSI, the NOAA Plus standard is where it'll go. So it'll be
Okay.
on there.
All right. I'll send that over to you then.
Okay. The next thing we wanted to discuss, we've come across this so many times in the last little while. A lot of it has been with as-builts that has already been built, but we have seen it recently with new builds. NOAA Plus standard requires roof sheathing. I can, we've had that come up several times, and we've had to not approve it. So please make sure you're using roof sheathing when completing your roof.
I don't necessarily even think that's NOAA Plus. That's pretty much
That's-
standard building. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
standard building practices.
Yeah, unless it's specifically engineered and they can provide a stamped, signed, engineered document or letter, that it meets wind loads and snow loads, then specific ones, then we can, take a look at it on an individual situation. But, standard, just trying to do it and hoping it passes, unfortunately it won't.
Yeah, right.
So the one that you were looking at, Tony, did it have some kind of insulation. And the one that I saw didn't have any insulation in it, but how were they insulating the ceiling when they did insulate, the ones that we were trying to inspect as as-built?
Well, the one that you looked at, I don't think they've gotten to that point yet.
Like, how do they do it? Fiberglass or spray foam?
So it had to be, they didn't get to that point yet, that I know of. But the other one that I went back on today, they had done fiberglass in there, but we had them take off the entire metal roof and sheet the roof over top of the over top of the fiberglass, and then put the metal roof back on again.
Did they have to
I had
put a
to put
drip
down
edge
ice
on?
and water shield on it too. Was it?
Okay. Did they have
Yeah.
to put a drip edge on too?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Had to do it
Okay.
proper.
Tony, wasn't there one that was being certified that you came across that wasn't using roof sheathing either?
That's the one I did today.
At school?
I forget what their last name is, but yeah, they took off all the metal roof. Baleness, yeah, Baleness, I think is their last name.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
And
took off all
luckily
the-
with a metal roof, you can unscrew the metal. You're not going to lose material or anything. Save your screws if you can, and put your sheathing on, put your drip edge around, put your ice and water shield on, and then put the same roofing material right back on. Hopefully that will work with the drip edge, because the drip edge does add a 1/2 inch all the way around. Unless you just use there is a drip edge that doesn't stick out. It just bends down. I guess you could get that if it's just an L angle with a little drip on the end. So
Anything
yeah,
else on that?
Well, the as-built are inspected to NFPA 1192, which really doesn't have any structural on it. But if you take, let's just say you take a pop-up trailer that you have canvas walls on, which is fine with a camper or NFPA 1192. If you crank that camper up and then try to drive it down the road, it's going to blow apart. And that's kind of the theory that I'm thinking is, even though we don't have any structural, we need to have plywood on the roof because because it's going to be driving down the road, that kind of a thing with a lot of wind type stuff. So even though it may not be specifically in NFPA 1192, I think we need to have, because somebody's going to push back on it, we need to have an argument to come back on, well, why are you requiring sheathing if it's inspected to NFPA 1192?
Even your RVs though, if you remove that rubber roof, you'll find that they have a roof sheathing on there. It's normally it's only like 1/4 inch, but at least they do have a sheathing on there.
No, I agree. And
Yeah.
I think what we need to do is we need to know, because, we need to know why we're asking for people. I can see on the NOAA Plus, but and on the ANSI, it calls for it, but on NFPA 1192, it doesn't. And we're inspecting the as-built to NFPA 1192.
Yeah, well, we can go through 1192 really good, just find out if if it doesn't have it, but there's got to be some type of building code that they've got to be applying to, because if not, whether 1192 addresses it or not, we have to be using some building code to address not only that, but the other structural features of the house.
I'm sure it's in there somewhere, Tony.
Yeah,
We
that's
just
right.
have to
That's right.
find
I'm
it.
going to go sit down and really go through it tight.
Yeah, I mean, there's something in there that says the house has to be roadworthy. Something's going to say in there, because it's the National Highway Safety and Transportation Administration's got to have something in there where we can point to if somebody wants to push back on that. I mean, it's fine for a pole barn, but for a tiny house on wheels RV or a tiny house on wheels park model or a tiny house on wheels, that's more suitable for full-time habitation with the NOAA Plus standard, it should have roof sheathing on it.
Right.
Okay. The next thing I wanted to address is insulation. I know you guys are tired of hearing about insulation. We did recently, after one of our, it may have been a Tiny Talk that we were on, discovered that people were having trouble getting the certain R factor. It was basically R21 that was having trouble being found, or you had to special order. I recently went through and did each side of the United States. I did California, I did Michigan, I did Virginia, Florida, North Carolina, Texas, Oklahoma. R15 is readily available in all Home Depots.
You
And it's
started
the
with
same
21.
price. R15 is the only one that was available around the country. R21 was more up north. So I have talked to the inspectors and I've talked to Robin, and I feel, and I think the inspectors will back me up on this, that we need to have the higher R factor if we can get it to you, and it's not going to be a problem of getting it from your supply houses. But
Are you
I'll let
distinguishing-
the
You have to
inspectors
distinguish
take
between
over.
roof and walls. The walls, we agreed that we were going to do an R15.
correct.
And then the roof, we
Was
did say
R21.
21 originally, but then we backed up and went
Right.
to 19. But on the website, it still has 13 listed in the walls.
It does, but it went back last week, but when it went back, I went around and started looking and calling, and it is available, and we prefer the higher R value. Not only us, but a lot of the jurisdictions are requiring the higher R value. So it's not only going to help you in the homes, it's going to help you maybe get placement,
And
because
there's
jurisdictions
really,
are inspecting.
and there's really just a minimal cost difference between the 13 and the 15. So it's not really going to impact the builders very much as far as dollar wise.
For
I
the
don't know what
material.
the 13 was, but the 15 was $30 a roll, I think, for the fiberglass. And Rockwool was a little cheaper, I think. But it is available. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but that's why we're here to talk about it.
Yeah.
I say, I'm all for it. I mean, honestly, the 15, it's just a better product all the way around than the 13. It actually fits better in the cavity, depth wise, and it gives you the extra R factor. So, and you want that in a tiny house. I mean, whether you're in a hot climate or cold climate, you want to keep either your heat or your cold in, and
You don't want it to cost you $1 million.
yeah, it doesn't change your wall thickness or anything like that. So, it's a smart move all the way around.
Oh, yeah, the labor is still the same. The cost is very minimal. And it actually, for the builder, it actually gives his client a better job.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
And
Chad?
a well insulated house, you can cut down on your air conditioning and
Oh,
heat
yeah.
requirements if they're well insulated. I would suggest that if we do this, that we roll it out like December 1st or January 1st. We give our builders a couple of emails saying beginning any new starts beginning, a certain date, the new requirement's going to be. What date do you guys want to do that on?
Well,
January
we're at the end of the year, so we could do January 1, I guess, if you want.
Yeah, I agree.
Some of the builders are automatically putting 15 in the wall anyway.
Yeah,
Right.
they're okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else with a opinion, comment?
Yeah, I had a question.
Okay,
Is there any concern or how do you approach the insulation in the ceiling? And as far as any type of airspace between the insulation and the roof deck? Conventional construction in the past, you always have an airspace for airflow to flow from the eave through the peak or however. How is that handled in a tiny house?
I
Rich,
think
you wanna do
Rich
that?
Rich,
Yeah,
didn't you
I'll-
come up with that, the 500 square foot?
Yeah, so in a residential house, in the building code, they actually have an exception for roof ventilation, and that is up to 400 square feet isn't required to be ventilated. And we've adopted that part of the IRC to follow suit because the problem that we're running into is once you get, you have your floor level, so you have your main level coming in, and then let's say you have a bathroom with a overhead loft, and by the time you get your roof and rafters and then your whatever roof material, typically metal roof, by the time that's all said and done, you're at your maximum height already, 13'6". So trying to add an additional inch of ventilation to a cavity is almost, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's very, very tough to do. And not only that, but some of the roofs, I would say portion of the roof, maybe half, I don't know, are like shed style roofs. So they're just sloped from one side to the other. And to properly ventilate a sloped roof is a little bit more involved than what people realize or understand. So in a nutshell, no, we don't require it, the airspace. If somebody opts to, great, fantastic, it's not a problem at all.
And the other thing is that those foam insert boards, what do you call those? The ventilator boards, those little
Baffles.
foam thing? The baffles, yeah. The baffles take up insulation space. So if you're putting R19 in, you need that full 5.5 inches in order to get your R19. And if you put a baffle in, you're cutting down on the R value.
So
Right.
you pretty much have to go with a 2x8 rafter
Yeah.
equivalent in order
Yeah.
to do 6 inches of insulation plus the airspace.
Right,
Yes.
that's exactly right. Yeah. But I tell all the builders too, everyone I talk to, everything that we require, that the code requires is an absolute minimum. You can always do better.
Right.
If you're inclined to do better for your client, that's good. Everything that we have is an absolute minimum.
Mhm.
Sorry about that. My dog wanted to talk. I told him no.
okay, we had a question that came up from one of the builders, I think it was last week, about is there an acceptable pressure loss when doing a water pressure test?
Before we do that, Sherry, Sharon Harrow put something in the chat, a
Oh.
question.
Want me to read it? I raised my hand so I could read her question. It's, it's about the roofing. Does not having roof cavity airspace affect roof performance regarding possible mold formation, etc.?
Let me answer that for a second. One of the things that I'm seeing a lot of, and we don't have any code that's requiring this, but what I'm seeing a lot of is, of course, most of the tiny houses use a metal roof. And I see a lot of them taking the metal roof, placing it flat down onto the roof sheeting, whatever underlayment they have under there, and screwing it right to it. That's really not the proper way. If you look at any of the manufacturers when they suggest how to do them, that's not the proper way to do it. The proper way is you put horizontal strips down every 2 foot, and then you actually screw it to that. That actually gives that air gap between that hot metal roof and the roof sheeting that you have down there. So you cut down on that transference of heat to your under roof. But I'm seeing a lot of the builders just doing it, laying it flat down on there, and that's really the incorrect way. And I am in agreement with her. I think that that does, in the long run, I think may cause some degrade in the, especially if you're using OSB under there, that it may cause some degrade in that OSB. But I don't think there's anything in the code that says that they can't do it. I've never done it when I've ever done a metal roof, so I wouldn't recommend anybody do it, but we have no way of telling them not to do that though.
Yeah, they would have to go after, or they not go after, wrong word. They would have to follow the manufacturer's installation instructions, and that's up to them to follow those instructions. During their build.
Yeah.
So
And
I have
why does the IRC have that exception? And if there is a potential for a mold, I mean, are they saying that with up to 400 or 500 square feet, whatever the exception is, that there's enough ventilation or enough residual, the moisture, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, that's my understanding of it, because the 400 square feet, it stems from additions typically. So when somebody's building an addition or renovating and they have an older house, the consensus is that the average is 400 square foot maximum. So they allowed it to stay as is, or essentially be built in like new but without the ventilation, because it's adequate as is. There's enough movement of air inside the dwelling, and hopefully on the outside as well.
Yeah, and then also we have Ron, we'll come to you in just a second here. Also, we recommend air exchangers too to handle the mold and the moisture issues.
All right, I have to step off for an inspection. I'll be back.
Oh, I didn't think he had one. Okay. Chad had a question that since he's not able to have a lot of service, he wanted to know if we could certify these with allowances to certain climate zones rather than make a one-size-fit-all standard for insulation.
If Jack can hear, I think I can answer some of that though, because one of the things that we always talk about is the fact that these homes are on wheels. So we'll say certify it to climate A, but 2 years from now, it may be moved to climate C. We have no way of knowing that. So we kind of, if I remember right, when we all had talked and all, that we kind of come up with sort of a one size fits all, as you just said, but in the different areas, we kind of rely on the contractor. And if that area requires a higher R value than what we're doing, than what we're requiring, that they should be building to that standard.
And also, I think the other way to go would be to, on the data plate, we were talking about putting the R value, not only the builder's name and the date of the build, but what the R value was on that, or the zone, or make it zones, so that a building official, if the house is designed for a warm, moist climate and it ends up going to a cold climate, that could be specifically stated on the data plate, what it was built to, so that and I think that's the direction that the tiny house industry, as we start writing standards and codes, they're talking about that in the background, that they want a data plate on there. And specifically with Blaine County, Idaho, they're requiring an R21 in the walls and an R28 in the ceilings. And the only way to specify that would be on the data plate, that the builder built that thing to that, so that when it comes into Blaine County, Idaho, the building official knows what was there.
Well, and yeah, and also to that, as I was saying, we don't know where the house is going to be. We have one of our clients, one of our builders is in Canada, and he puts out a house, I don't know, Sherry, will it one a week or more?
Probably more.
And majority of them come into the United States.
And to
Yes, so-
Florida.
Mostly
Yeah,
to
so
Florida.
we give them our standards and we rely on them to meet wherever, we never know where their house is going to wind up. So we rely on them to meet whatever codes that are required there as far as insulation goes.
And I know here recently a house was built in California and ended up in North Carolina. So it
Yeah.
is cross country a lot of times where these houses end up.
And the data plate would handle that. So Ron
Right.
had his hands up and Catherine's got her hand up. Sherry, do you want to handle either one of those now?
Sure, Ron, go ahead. I think yours was up first.
Okay, I've got to backtrack just a little bit to Tony's comment about the metal roof and being laid on the roof deck. From what I understand, if you're talking about a standing seam roof, I was told that they are actually required to be flat on the roof deck. So yeah, I'm not sure how we would handle that. The other part is, I would think that the way for tiny homes is if there's no airspace between the insulation and the roof deck, then possibly doing a layer of spray foam on the underside of the roof deck would be the way to go, and then complete the void with fiberglass after that.
Yeah, that would be good.
Well, we
Yeah, I'm
can
not-
always suggest certain things to builders. But we can't go above the standard. Whatever we put out there as a standard, Ron, is what it's going to be. So we can suggest to builders, and we do, this is the minimum standard. Same thing with thermal brakes on the chassis. You know, right now, the minimum is sill seal, which we think is not sufficient, but you know, until we get to down the road here, being able to get a consensus of builders, what they're willing to do, we're putting out what we can and requiring what we can without getting too much pushback, trying to get a balance between what the building code officials want and what the builders want to do, and trying to build a safe, you know, home at the same time.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Catherine?
Yes, ma'am. I don't know. My question is more from just the development standpoint. Is this gonna affect faux parks in Florida? Or is this something, since y'all are doing such an amazing job at what you're doing with NOAA, that this is something we won't ever have to worry about when we're trying to create a park just for the
Well, that's what we're hoping for, Catherine. We're hoping that we're doing a good enough job that the NOAA certified tiny houses will be grandfathered in to any standards or codes that come down the pike.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this. I really appreciate it.
Glad you're here.
Yay. That was all.
Okay, So
Actually, Catherine, we look forward to you guys being here because that helps us out. That's really
Absolutely.
one of the reasons we do this, is so that we can get the builders' input to help us do a better job.
Well, and I am actually, I've lived in a tiny home and I built a container home, but I'm mostly interested in just helping to pave the way so that tiny homes can be wherever we want them to be in America and around the world.
That would be great.
So I may not be building them. I'd like to just help bring awareness and education and develop communities that are for both. So
there you
that's
go.
my goal.
Did anyone answer the question on water pressure test, acceptable pressure loss during a pressure test? Is there a certain amount that
Well,
can
here-
lose pressure and still be passed?
here's what you got to remember. When the air compressor is pumping up that pressure and gets it up to 80, by the time it gets up to 80, the air coming out of that compressor is hot. So that hot air is expanded. So when they get up to 80 and they leave there, and we usually want to see it for a minimum of 10 minutes. As the air cools down, it will contract in there. So they will almost always lose a couple pounds of air pressure. I usually look at maybe 4 pounds as the most acceptable amount. But like I tell them also, or tell the builders, if we see it losing that much, because they'll come back and say, well, I pumped it up to 80, but now it's only like 76 or something like that. Well, it's how long ago did you pump it up? How cool did the air get? Because it will contract. But if it continues to lose, then you've got a serious problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say have them pump it up to 85 and then let it cool, pump it up 10 minutes before the inspection to 85 pounds. And then when you look at it, it will have cooled down whatever it's going to cool down, and you'll have to be able to tell. And this is for the builder's safety too. If there is a leak, he wants to know that there is a leak and be able to fix it.
Oh yeah, I did one just before we got on here earlier, and his water test for his wastewater line, he found that it was leaking under the house. His the air pressure test for his PEX lines, he found a leak on that too. And I told him that's really one of the main reasons we do this test, not as much for us as it is for him.
Robin, I'm going to go to the bottom of where you added the one to the list. I want to do it before we do the other two. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No order.
Okay. What is NOAA responsible for and what is the builder responsible for? I can answer that question. NOAA inspects, the builder certifies that they are building to the NOAA Plus standards. Also, we are not quality control inspectors. We're making sure the house is built to code. So that's the builder's responsibility and NOAA's responsibility. Tony, Robin, anybody else have anything to add?
Yeah. We get some complaints occasionally where someone purchased a house from a builder and they're really not happy with the workmanship. Well, there's something I can tell you, we see some really bad paint jobs and some really bad carpentry work. But code-wise, they're not in violation of anything. So there really isn't anything we can say. As Sherry just said, we're not quality control. And a lot of times, even quality control is a matter of interpretation or a matter of taste. So yeah, sometimes, I see things without I'm inspecting and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I would never give that to my customer, but there's nothing wrong with it as far as legality goes, as far as code and stuff like that. So yeah, we're just, that's the thing, we're not quality control.
As a buyer told me just a couple of weeks ago, they asked me if NOAA can complete an inspection without the construction being completed. Well, the answer to that is yes, and we do it quite often.
Pre-inspection.
Because we do rough inspections for plumbing, rough inspections for electrical. Then we do our insulation. Our final inspection, yes, we measure the height and width of the house. We make sure the safety factors are in place, the stair railings, the guard railings, the fire extinguishers, and that's our stage, that's our final inspection. Well, that doesn't mean that they're finished painting. It's not move-in ready. It doesn't have to be move-in ready for NOAA to complete the inspection process. As long as we can verify that lights work, we can verify the appliances are in to make it a home, the fixtures are in. I don't care if the cabinets aren't in all the way. Maybe the top's not on the cabinets, but it's completed and passed its final inspection as long as it passed the stage 5. They could still be painting and they could put the cabinets in, or the cabinet, the countertops, because we're not inspecting those.
Well, the only thing
So-
I would say to that, Sherry, is we would need the sink, the kitchen sink in so that we can
Absolutely.
inspect the plumbing. And you have to have the countertop in order to have the kitchen sink. I don't even know if we have to have if it's a range and a refrigerator, if that has to be in. What do you think, Tony?
No, but
Or
the other
Chad?
thing is, well, we don't inspect a refrigerator, we don't inspect
Correct.
appliances. And the other thing is, we do see some of them where we'll go in and do a final and they don't have all the kitchen cabinet doors on yet. Or they may not have the all the drawers in the cabinets in yet. Or the guys will be painting while we're doing the inspection. But we're not looking for the cabinet drawers, and we're not looking for the painting. We're not looking for any of that. As Sherry just said, we're looking to make sure that the fire extinguisher is where it belongs, that their smoke detectors are in, and that all their lights are installed and so forth like that. It's primarily, really, I always call it a life safety inspection as the final inspection.
What do you think,
Absolutely.
Chad?
100%. Yeah, we are code inspectors, not quality control. Like I tell people, I used to battle this in the field all the time. That trim looks like crap. How could you allow that? Show me in the code where it says it can't look like crap. So that's, yeah, 100%. As far as the appliances, I agree. Anything that's not part of the structure itself,
Right.
a built-in fireplace, yeah, okay, that's got to be in and done. But anything that's cord and plug connected, that's an electrical appliance, I wouldn't see where that would need to be necessarily installed, at the final. But fire extinguisher, yep. Windows, yep. All that stuff.
How about an over the stove hood? Would that have to be installed?
I guess the question there is it required? I'm
My
not sure.
take on that, Chad, is that the over the stove hood is wired direct. And so
Yeah.
that would have to be installed. A over the stove microwave is plugged in. And so to me, that's just a plug-in appliance, where an over the stove hood is a direct wired appliance. So that would have to be in. That's my take on it. I don't know if I'm right or not, but
There are
that's,
some over the stove hoods, just range hoods, that are plug-in as well. You can actually convert those to either or. Now, if it's a freestanding, range hood without a cabinet above it, then typically you're going to see those hardwired. But yeah, I would say either installed or at the very least in a junction box terminated.
okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
Me. I want to weigh in on that.
Go ahead.
Well, I want to stress, and I'll keep stressing and stressing and stressing until I can't stress it anymore. It is the, as it says on the seal, builder certifies compliance with, and then listed on there, the ANSI 119.5, the NFPA 70, National Electric Code. It's builder certifies with, and they signed a pledge to build to the NOAA Plus standard. And that means that the builder is taking on entire responsibility. What we do is we inspect to verify compliance with those standards and codes. And we are not perfect. We didn't build the thing. We can't see everything. So if the builder comes in and encloses a on-demand hot water heater that's supposed to be not enclosed after the fact, we're not responsible for that. Or if the builder takes out a shower and puts in a tub, we already inspected the shower and now there's this tub, all of it. We're not going to go back and relook at the previous one, the whole thing, and say, oh, that one had a shower and now it's a tub, unless we notice something. So what I'm trying to say is we're human. We're going to make mistakes, number one. Number two, we can't see everything. We really are relying heavily on a builder to do a quality job. And if a builder does not do a quality job, we can sanction that builder for a period of time, and we can terminate that builder if they continue to put out product that is where there's lawsuits and things like that going on, and we have. So I just wanted to stress very, very much that yeah, we're doing the best job we can to verify compliance, but it is the builder's responsibility to build a good product, and we don't inspect quality, but we do inspect the standards and codes. So, and as best we can. And Rich is back. Hi, Rich.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be back.
Did you want to add did you hear of any of that, Rich?
I did, and yeah, Robin, you definitely hit every topic that needed to be hit on that factor. I mean, it truly comes down. I'm just going to be repetitive here, but to what Robin said, but it truly does come down to the builder, performing their own quality control. But we do have the standards, and we do inspect to those standards and provide the approval to standards. But if they switch something out, or what have you, or like you said, put a cabinet over something, we may or may not catch that. And like Robin said, we're human. Everybody's and not only that, but it's kind of unrealistic to expect, if a builder tries to hide something, it doesn't matter whether, we're doing a video inspection or we're in person. If somebody wants to try and hide something, they're probably gonna, whether they get caught or not, time will tell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, the next thing was inspection abuse.
Remote inspection abuse.
I abuse my inspectors all the time. That's okay. They look good. That's all that matters. No, inspection abuse. I think where Robin was going with this is, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, if you schedule an inspection, please remember that if you're not going to have, if you know ahead of time that you're not going to make that inspection, please call and let us know, because all of the inspectors either have another job or it's taken an inspection slot from someone that might have could have used it. So as soon as you know you're not going to be able to make that slot, give Leanne a call, give me a call, or send a text. Either any way that you can. Also, I think the other factor is he's wanting to get across is we require a 24-hour notice to schedule inspections. That's how far in advance you can schedule inspections. Every now and then, if one of my builders call and say, hey, Sherry, I really need to get this inspection done, is there any way that you can work me in? Well, if I have an inspector that's willing to take it, we'll get you in, but not always are they able to. Rich has a regular job. He works in between. Chad has a regular job. Tony has me as his regular job because I keep him really busy. But we will try to work you in, but we prefer that you book the 24-hour in advance.
I wanted to just say something about that. I get a number of people that I've called for an inspection, and they will say, I went to the website, I tried to cancel, it wouldn't let me cancel, I tried to do it. And I said, and I've been forgetting to mention it to you. I said, I'll check into that and see. I don't know if, I've never scheduled an inspection, so I don't know if there's a way on our website that you cancel them or anything like
You
that.
can cancel them, but I think it has to be 24 hours in advance. Jordan, can you correct me on that? I guess I was.
It does have to, I know that one. It does have to be outside of 24 hours.
In order to cancel on the website.
Yes. Or they call that 866 number. Cancel with a person.
Hey, Sherry, another good
Yes.
reason to schedule in advance and not call on the fly is because the inspectors need to review the previous inspection if for
Right.
any outstanding items, to get a feel for what that build is, because they may not have been the one that was doing the previous inspections. If Rich did an inspection and then Tony happens to be available to take that one on the fly, Tony needs time to review whatever Rich inspected before so that he's familiar with it. So.
Absolutely. Good point.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it really comes down to, we at NOAA really try and value people's time and be prompt and on time and courteous. And we just ask the same. That's all it comes down to. I mean, there's mistakes to be made by all of us, but, as long as we can all try and respect each other's time, it works best for everybody.
But we do really go out of our way. We do try to accommodate the builder as much as we possibly can.
Absolutely.
And
Robin, did I
that-
hit it on the head or was totally off base?
I had something else in mind, sorry.
Go figure. Okay,
But-
go ahead.
But that was good. That was good. I agree. I agree with all of that. But on that same topic, there are, what can I say? There are some builders that request certain inspectors, and I'm not sure that that's the best policy. In other words, as we grow and we add inspectors, I know a lot of building departments that shuffle inspectors around just to keep everybody honest and on the same page and that kind of thing. And what I was wanting to talk about, I was on a 4-hour call with Colorado Modular, who are trying to put tiny houses in. And Mo's quote, he said, "Remote inspections are ripe for abuse." And so what he meant by that is just this, if you can call and just get the same inspector, not any of ours, our guys are great, wonderful, and the ones that I've known for a while, but it does create the possibility that one inspector could be quote unquote on the take, and so a builder would call in and ask for a certain inspector all the time. And the other thing that we have seen is where a builder did not have an egress window in the proper size egress window in his unit. So he put another unit right beside that one and tried to pass, do the VIN and then pass the one off that did have the good egress window as the house that he was inspecting on. And so, I sent Mo an email today, actually, about that, saying that we have seen, that there is a potential for abuse with remote inspections, and we have been working on that and have developed a remote inspection process that seems to be not perfect, but when we drop a call, we go right back to the VIN number, and then we zoom out and we look at the unit and we go back in. So the guy that wants to cheat, so to speak, isn't able to, because we start every inspection, even if it drops a call and a half inspection, we go back to that VIN, trying to avoid that. And we guide that inspector I mean, that builder, the inspector is in charge and he says, hey, I want to see that corner over there, you know, where, you know, he might see something that maybe there's not a kick plate or something as he's panning around. So it's not the builder showing us what he wants to show us. It's the inspectors guiding. And so that was kind of what I wanted to say was that, you know, we are being looked at by the building code officials and the county municipalities and the state municipalities and modular departments. We're being looked at and scrutinized as the one to do remote inspections. If anybody's going to bring remote inspections into the world, you know, we've been doing it for 7 years. We kind of have a handle on it. So we need to keep the bar raised and keep, you know, the potential for abuse is still there. It'll happen even in person inspections. It could happen. But the bottom line is, I think we have a good product here. And I think the tiny house industry and the construction industry at large would be really served well to instigate remote inspections in some of their inspection processes.
You know,
I agree.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
speaking to what you said though, I have a number of builders that say they, well, one, you know, will say, well, I had this other inspector, you know, and I'll say, well, he's just not available right now. But I know that a lot of builders feel really comfortable starting with an inspector and going all the way through the project with that inspector, because that inspector gets to know the builder gets to know the inspector. The other thing is, I think it does help to cut down on some of that cheating that you talked about, because the inspector gets to know what that house looks like, and then all of a sudden he's looking at that house and thinking, that's not the same house I looked at before. But another inspector coming in may not know that. And as you know, some of the VINs that we have are that we see on these trailers are temporary VINs. Sometimes they're on a piece of paper, sometimes they're just done with little markers and stuff like that. So it's easy enough to place that on something else. So I've always been actually glad that if I start with somebody, I work all the way through with them, because I get to know them, they get to know me, but I get to know the house that they're making.
Yeah, and I would, as far as the piece of paper, I would say steer away from that. I would almost require them to etch into the tongue, or take some fingernail polish or something and paint on the tongue the identifier, whatever serial number identifier you're going to use through the whole inspection, because it'd be hard to forge an etched in number or a painted number on that thing. You could compare those numbers and see if they're the same, as opposed to a VIN number. And there's also the possibility that they could drill out the pop rivets and move that VIN plate to another tongue. I mean, there's always that possibility. But I agree, Tony, that if you start with it, it's not a bad idea to go through it with it, but doesn't mean for the next one, you're going to get the same guy.
Right. Right.
If we could do that. And the other side of the coin is, as we go forward, there are going to be municipalities that will want ICC certified plumbing, in the plumbing or in the structural, to do the structural or the plumbing inspection. So all of our inspectors may not have all of those certifications, and you're just going to get the guy that's certified in that, in order for us to satisfy the requirements of the jurisdiction as those come along. So just throw those two thoughts out to everybody.
I think the builders
Catherine?
would appreciate that anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I would just like to say from a person standpoint that I can totally see where favoritism could look bad for the inspector. If I live in a small town community, the good old boy system, where they absolutely have that, and it is abused. So
It
I
can
think
be.
that I think you're right, having one inspector that follows the entire one build. But if you have one builder that keeps asking for, for Robin to do every inspection, well, that's a sign that there might be a problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the small fail-safe that we do have in there, that Robin has in there, is that he does have an independent person that's working for NOAA that periodically reviews our inspections to kind
Right.
of be sure that these little things aren't happening.
Right.
Exactly. It's just always better to be safe than sorry, because once that speculation happens, well, then everybody's put into question. So it's just a good practice. as you
Absolutely.
Bring
Mhm.
on more people.
Did Bonnie fall out
Everyone
of
does
the
sign
chair?
the pledge of impartiality, so there's never a question.
Yeah. Rich, did you
Okay.
you started to say something? Did
No,
you?
no, Tony covered most of what I was going to say, so we're good. Yeah, appreciate it, Tony.
Okay, the last one was ASTM, Robin.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of do an ASTM update for everybody. The subcommittee, the E9 or E6 subcommittee that we are under, we have been in conversation with the powers that be on that, and it looks like the first initiative or the first committees that are going to be built are going to be the foundation, the chassis as a floor system, the structure, and then microgrids, or utility hookups, or how do you hook up the how do you hook up the thing? So those are the four committees. We're basically, there's other things that need to be done, but it looks like we're going to have an engineer on each one of those committees, for those first three committees. I don't know. And then the fifth committee, because we only have authorization for 5 right now. The fifth committee is going to be a committee that goes to different standards and codes. Like, okay, so now we've got the foundation, we've got the floor system, we've got the structure. What about the plumbing? What about the electrical? Well, we're going to try to go to existing standards and codes like National Electric Code and say, okay, for the electrical, we're going to follow National Electric Code and and so we're going to have a committee that will go out. I'm trying to find, I think there's already written a plumbing code for tiny houses out there somewhere. I'm trying to find that one. And so that's the ASTM initiative is out there trying to accomplish before July 1st of next year, at least having a kind of a comprehensive standard for tiny houses. The way it's going to play out, they have to have it by July 1st, but because of all the bonding, because of all the applications and the regulations and inspections of the plant, they're saying, Colorado's saying, even after July 1st, it's going to be 6 months before the first tiny house factory is ready to start putting out tiny houses, which is kind of an indictment against the modular industry requirement that they're putting out there, that it's that hard for a manufacturer to get approved to build tiny houses. So we're gonna be on the calls every month. It should be, we're trying to push, for affordability, movability, custom built, smaller manufacturers and DIYers. We're trying to push for all of those, and it's in the statute to consider all of those. But when they said, well, it's going to take 6 months to get an approval as a manufacturer, that to me is saying that, wow, this is going to be pretty stringent for the builders that are currently building tiny houses and the new ones that are coming along. Some of the builders, in fact, on the call, one of the builders was saying, and I've heard another builder saying, I'm not going to build I'm not going to be able to build in Colorado. I'm going to move just a few miles north and go into Utah and build in Utah. That's an update on the the Colorado and the ASTM initiative. I'll keep you posted on that.
Robin, and I'm just, don't mind where my head is right now, but I mean, what would stop anybody from writing a tiny house standard to follow? I mean, what would happen, you know, like Tom, Dick, and Harry, they wanted to write a standard, and they actually wrote a standard. I mean, would it hold weight?
Well, we have a standard. The NOAA Plus standard is a standard.
Yeah, true. Okay, fair enough.
So yeah, if we said, and I sent this to them, I sent them a copy of the NOAA Plus standard. I said, look, if all you have is ANSI 119.5 and NFPA 1192 and IRC and IPC and all the others, and they don't address all the things in there, obviously in IRC, why don't you use the NOAA Plus standard until something better comes along? They haven't responded, but they're really looking at us. And we have talked about outside of, outside of the ASTM initiative. And if it gets too cumbersome, what happens is with the ASTM, if one person says, I don't like it because now it's going to delay a month because we have to go back, rewrite it, and bring it back before everybody for a vote. And, there's 200 people voting on this thing. And if we just get some people, which we do have some people in ICC and in THIA that were trying to stop the whole initiative. Well, I heard today of one ASTM standard that's been 11 years in the making because people are pushing back on it. So yeah, that may be the way that has to go. That we get a couple of engineers together, we pay them to do something, and we create a standard. We won't call it the NOAA Plus, we'll call it the tiny house standard or something, so that it's more accepted in the community. And just say one of the things that Janet said, and I don't know whether it's true or not, that we don't want to be a home, just a home, because if it's just a home, a dwelling, then it falls under IRC. But if it's a vehicular home, if it is what she called a hybrid, it could be a hybrid, it moves, which we do want it to be able to move, and it's a home, that would keep us out of IRC. And we don't want it to be into HUD, we don't want it to be a manufactured house, and we don't want it to be under IRC. We don't want it to be an RV. We want it to be its own tiny house, a whole new qualification, a whole new segment of a dwelling that happens to be movable. And in order to be movable, it has to be on a chassis, and there's no prescriptive anything on that. And in order to get something prescriptive into IRC, it's going to be 2027. And so what we're concerned about, what I'm concerned about, is that the dissenters who want it in IRC will just keep pushing back on ASTM initiative until they can get the IRC thing, Appendix Q, Appendix AQ, or put it in the body, so that they can basically own the standard and code for tiny houses. And that's not really what we want.
Okay. All right.
All right. I hope everybody has gotten their questions answered if you had any, and I hope we've not bored you too much tonight or scared you too much either. We love all of our builders. We promote you as hard as we can promote when we have callers. So we're all in this together. Leanne, it's yours.
All right. That was very informative, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Yes, Catherine's clapping for you. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys can join us on Monday afternoon. We're going to have Sean Tickner with Big Skills Tiny Homes. He's out in California. He's doing great things with the students. They've helped wildfire survivors get into housing, and they've built a youth village for kids that are, or not kids, but older kids that are homeless. So it's going to be really interesting. I hope you can tune in to hear his story. So you guys, happy Friday. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.